Oh, we could fly.
This is your summer. That means Six Flags and the taste of an ice-cold Coca-Cola. We're talking thrilling coasters, delicious burgers, real moments together, and this. Coke is summer refreshment when you need it most, so you can hop on another ride or race down a slide at the water park. This is your summer. Six Flags and Coca-Cola. Come make it yours. Visit sixflags.com/Coke to save up to $20 on passes.
We could fly.
I'm a sports psychology coach and sports mental performance analyst. I am the author of the book Success Mantra in Sports, a book on the mental aspects of sports. The topic of this episode is Nick Kyrgios really changing? The third round match between Nick Kyrgios and Stefanos Tsitsipas at the Wimbledon last week has been hotly debated across the world. It was volatile in nature. Tempers ran high with the two players competing fiercely. There was antics, action and drama. The whole atmosphere was so toxic that Stefanos Tsitsipas, who normally is a cool guy, was also sucked into it. Both players were fined in the end. And of course, the crowd enjoyed every bit of it. What else could they ask for? The kind of character that Nick Kyrgios is, it attracts spectators to the stadium. No wonder he is often described as the box office. Looking at Kyrgios reminds me of John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors. Both were crowd pullers. Both of them created tantrums on the court. They used to play mind games with their opponents and hold up play. The authorities were hesitant to take action on them, fearing loss in gate money. They usually crossed the line and took it too far. Was the match between Kyrgios and Tsitsipas played in the right spirit, especially for what Wimbledon is known for? Definitely not. The kind of unsportsmanlike behavior that was on display, especially from Nick Kyrgios, attracted the wrath of former players. Former Wimbledon champion Pat Cash said, fellow Australian Nick Kyrgios was guilty of cheating and gamesmanship. His ill-tempered win over Tsitsipas and his antics had damaged the sport's standing. He has brought the sport to the lowest level. I can see as far as gamesmanship, cheating, manipulation, abuse and aggressive behavior goes. 7-time major champion Mats Wilander said, I've never seen the kind of combustible atmosphere during the match. I'm not sure I want to see something like that again because I don't think this is what we want to promote in tennis. It is unfortunate that Kyrgios' name has become synonymous to talent and hot-tempered behavior. The two qualities contradict instead of complementing each other. This is what has stood in the way of the early promise Nick showed. When Nick burst into the scene with his consistent showing in the ATP circuit, he was expected to be the next Federer. Paul Annacone, a former top 15 tennis player and once coach to Roger Federer, said in 2017, I think Nick is the most talented player since Roger jumped on the scene. Kyrgios has the distinction of beating the big three, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. He was only 19 when he beat Rafa Nadal. But all these years, looking at what Nick has achieved, people are saying Kyrgios is such a wasted talent. His aggressive behavior is pulling him down. The media and former players have accused him of cheating, tanking, verbal abuse, constant talking, appealing, antics, swearing, yelling, bullying, and disrespecting opponents, and also unsportsmanlike conduct on the court. There are other things said about him as well. He has been described as a clown, artist, genius, shot maker, contender, fighter, brat, and jerk. John McEnroe has described Kyrgios as a volatile sort of a person who repeatedly has gotten into trouble for on-court actions. Ironically, this criticism comes from John McEnroe, who himself was guilty of such conduct as a professional tennis player and often referred to as super brat. But he got away with this irate behavior each time with the kind of results he produced. Though he was unpopular with the authorities, umpires, and even players, he survived because his records spoke for him. But ultimately, the authorities had the final say, and he was asked to fall in line with code of conduct stipulated for the professional players. John McEnroe has criticized Kyrgios' behavior several times. Following his loss to Murray at 2016 Wimbledon Championship, McEnroe criticized Nick's temperament, saying Kyrgios has to look in the mirror if he wants to become a top player and win slams. He questioned his attitude towards the sport, as Kyrgios was reportedly seen watching compatriot Hewitt in a doubles match shortly before his match with Andy Murray. 2 months later, and following his exit from the US Open, Kyrgios was further criticized by McEnroe. He called on Kyrgios to retire from the sport, saying, "Nick, Kyrgios, if you don't want to be a professional tennis player, do something else." The comments came shortly after Nick's third round defeat by Ilya Marchenko, in which he retired due to hip injury. McEnroe commented, "He is hurt because he is not training enough." At the same time, McEnroe has praised Kyrgios' talent. McEnroe said that Kyrgios is the most talented player he's seen in the last 10 years, but that Kyrgios may run himself out if he continued not to commit himself to tennis. McEnroe stated that if he could choose any player on the current tour to coach, he would pick Nick Kyrgios. No other player has been banned and fined as many times as Nick in recent times. This may have left a scar on his already emotionally charged mental state, and this is showing. Nick Kyrgios is accused of tanking. What does it mean? It means you don't put in the required effort and deliberately throw away your match. When a player stops trying, it may signal that in that moment he or she is no longer willing to tolerate any difficult internal experiences, including that of anger. When we give up, the pressure, the anger, the pain, the helpless feelings, the embarrassment are all reduced. Unfortunately, it comes at a big cost, the opportunity to win. In October 2016, Kyrgios was again fined heavily for lack of effort, verbal abuse of a spectator, and unsportsmanlike conduct. He was banned for 8 weeks for lack of efforts again against unseeded Misha Zverev in the second round of the Shanghai Rolex Masters. He threw the match 6-3, 6-1 in 48 minutes, at one point asking the umpire, "Can you call time so I can finish this match and go home?" When later asked during a press conference if he thought he owed the fans a better effort, he responded, "What does that even mean? I am good at hitting a tennis ball at the net. Big deal. I don't owe them anything. I don't like it. I don't ask you to come and watch it. Just leave." Such erratic and senseless behavior. We know that every time he tanks, there might be something eating at his head which we can't possibly imagine enduring. We know that every time he needlessly attacks an opponent or an umpire, he might be struggling with an avalanche of emotions that are just not humanly possible to manage. We know that every time he morosely expresses his lack of interest in tennis, he might be screaming his lungs out on the inside. It is a cry for help. Even the injuries that Kyrgios so frequently suffers might be related to his psychological issues. There are times when Nick behaved indecently in public. I remember this incident when Nick, during a match at the 2015 Rogers Cup, generated considerable controversy for insults he directed at his opponent, Stan Wawrinka, and his girlfriend. This was a personal matter relating to Wawrinka, which should have not been spoken in public. Kyrgios has openly said that he does not love tennis and has a greater interest in basketball. He openly critiqued his dedication to the sport after his exit at the 2017 US Open to fellow Australian John Millman, saying that he is not dedicated to the game of all. Why does Nick say that he is not dedicated to a game and does not love tennis? Is it because it is too much of hard work, too much of sacrifice and commitment? We never know unless he comes out with it. Nick said there are players out there that are more dedicated, that want to get better, that strive to get better every day, the 1%ers. I am not that guy. I know what it's all for now. You have probably heard me say a few times over the years that I don't want tennis badly enough. Oh, if you're not dedicated enough and don't want the game badly enough, then what are you doing out there wasting your time? These are questions his fans and critics ask. Nick is known to bully his opponents. We saw Nick do this to his rival in this year's Wimbledon third round match, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Said Tsitsipas after the match, "Yeah, it's constant bullying. That's what he does. He bullies the opponents. He was probably a bully at school himself. I don't like bullies. I don't like people that put other people down. He has some good traits in his character as well. He also has a very evil side to him, which if it's exposed, it can really do a lot of harm and bad to the people around him." In this same match, Kyrgios called "good shot" when Tsitsipas missed a backhand. But he celebrated his luck with a net cord that gave him a point. He should have apologized to his opponent across the net, but he didn't. This exposes this unsportive, sly, manipulative side of him. A big tease, isn't he? He once threw a tantrum over not having a white towel at the 2019 Rogers Cup. He chucked a chair onto the court while losing to Novak Djokovic at the Italian Open the same year, and threw a tennis racket in the direction of a ball boy at Indian Wells as recently as March 2022. Kyrgios has also repeatedly taken aim at his rivals, quite literally, when he admitted to purposefully aiming the ball at Rafa Nadal during their second round match at Wimbledon in 2019, saying he wanted to hit him square in the chest. He is known to break rackets on several occasions out of frustration. There is also a good side of Nikrios. But sadly, it's only when he is in the competitive arena something inside him trips to trigger the other side of him. In response to the bushfires in Australia in 2020, KYRGIOS took a leading role in getting the response from the country's tennis players. He pledged to donate $200 for every ace he served during the summer, which was subsequently taken up by other Australian tennis players. KYRGIOS participated in the 2020 Australian Open's Rally for Relief, where he played a one-set singles match against Roger Federer. He once said, "But when I am working on the NK Foundation at our Melbourne facility, I cast my mind forward to all the disadvantaged kids I will be helping. I am playing for them now." He normally speaks well with his fans and obliges kids with autographs. There is always a good side of him. What Nick himself feels about his own behavior and what he thinks of people, let's try to understand. About KYRGIOS' mood swings, indifference and guilt, he has been known to say things like, "I am not good enough. I keep letting people down." The lack of motivation could have all the root in the underlying mental demons that have been plaguing him for all the while. Nikrios has spoken about his struggle with depression, which he says left him in a lonely, dark place. He says, "When I am struggling," and it wasn't just about tennis, there were moments that when I was seriously depressed. KYRGIOS told this to Sydney's Sunday Telegraph. "I remember waking up in Shanghai one year and it was 4 p.m. and I was still in bed, curtains closed. I didn't want to see the light of the day. I felt like no one wanted to know me as a person. They just wanted to get hold of me as a tennis player and use me. I didn't feel like I could trust anyone. It was a lonely, dark place, and things came from that. I just lost the joy for the game and I was spiraling out of control. I fell into depression because of the things I thought I had to be. I was afraid to go out and talk to the people because I thought I had let them down because I wasn't winning matches. I just know that every tennis player deals with negative stuff. I'm not trying to play a victim card here, but I don't live under a rock. I know I caught a lot of flack for everything I do. Sometimes I don't read it, but it's not hard to miss when I wake up and go to Instagram and it's just subconsciously there. Mind is taking it all in. I mean, it's not easy to put it behind you. I've been dealing with it. I started dealing with this kind of thing when I was 17 or 18. I was like a child then. Do you know what I mean? I know now. I try and block it out. I'm more mature and stuff, but it's not easy. He says he believed at times that people he met really didn't care who he was as a human being. Rather, just a tennis player, the crazy tennis player. He added, I felt worthless, to be honest. I didn't feel comfortable. I hated my life at one stage. Well, imagine being the best at something, undisputed. Everyone knows who you are when you walk into a tennis venue. You have been told you're the next Federer since you were 14. Then you make it to the Pro Tour the money pours in, and you're a big shot on the big scene. Finally, you play some nobody on a big stage, he's beating you. What's your defense mechanism? Throw the match. Nobody might win, but he didn't beat you at your best. You just tanked. You lost, but your ego that's been inflated since you first held a tennis racket is left intact. He says he had to deal with drug and alcohol abuse and self-harm. Despite Nick Kyrgios' awe-inspiring talent and unwavering self-belief, it appears clear that significant psychological hurdles stand between him and the fulfilling of his immense potential. Kyrgios has developed an addiction to behaviors that thus serve to reduce fear and anxiety common to competing. Nick appears to distract himself from his own struggles. When we experience difficult predictions or judgments to do with competition outcomes or difficult feelings and physical sensations to do with these thoughts such as anxiety, we may automatically shift our attention onto something else to avoid those difficult experiences. But sometimes players unintentionally distract themselves to avoid the natural difficulties that come with maintaining attention in the moment when challenged. Players can come to use excuses to reduce difficult thoughts and feelings surrounding competition. While excuses help us feel better, they don't help us play better. When players automatically become caught up in these difficult internal experiences, their performance likely worsens, which in turn increases frustration and anxiety further. As a player starts losing, it's natural to experience both frustration and anxiety. At some point, the player might act angrily by throwing his or her racket to release the internal experience of frustration. But not only will this action reduce frustration in that moment, but it will also reduce the player's anxiety. And since anger feels better than fear, when a situation triggers a player's fear of losing, he or she may automatically come over time to use anger as a way of reducing the experience of fear. The angrier I act, the less nervous I feel, is how they perceive the whole thing. He never learned to grind. He never learned to deal with adversity. And when it presents itself, he panics, experts say about Nick Kyrgios. Nick said, "I just know that every tennis player deals with negative stuff. I'm not trying to play victim card here. I felt worthless, to be honest. I didn't feel comfortable. I hated my life at one stage." You can go on and on talking about the negative behavior of Nick Kyrgios, but one should also be empathetic enough to understand what is going on inside the person, adopting the person-centered approach to find out about his feelings and what were the experiences and the circumstances that shaped his personality and behavior. Not much has been written about this in public domain. We don't know much about his innate personality, upbringing, circumstances and experiences of his life. But we can analyze the behavior and some of the common reasons that could trigger such behavior. Being a sports psychology coach and psychological counselor myself, I want to discuss some of the psychological factors that could have bothered Nick Kyrgios on his journey. Every athlete, and especially a tennis player, must exhibit good character, temperament, and sportsmanlike behavior. Unfortunately for Nick, he has not been able to conform to the standards that is expected from tennis players. Some of the negative characteristics that he has exhibited on and off the court are aggression, mood swings, anger, social issues, and signs of personality disorder. Let us come to aggression first. Aggression is that kind of behavior meant to harm someone physically or psychologically. Aggressive behavior in the case of Nikrios may be as a result of some kind of frustration, maybe with his own performance and results, or because of the endless effort, sacrifice, and commitment he has to put to become the world's best tennis player. Research says that the personality, inborn and acquired, and the situations can trigger frustration and aggression. Ego-oriented athletes are more aggressive than task-oriented athletes. Taking a good look at Nikrios, you get the feeling that he is an ego-oriented athlete. The trigger for aggression causes changes in internal state, followed by increased arousal, mood changes, and hostility. Some athletes use aggression and anger to enhance their performance. Psychologists are of the opinion that though aggression and anger improve performance by the way of increasing in arousal and assertiveness, it has its negative effects on the long run. John McEnroe was one such person who wanted to use anger positively to win on the court. Next, anger. Anger is an emotional state characterized by psychological and physiological changes. Anger makes athletes to lose their rational thinking, power of discretion, and sense of judgment. The common known reasons for getting angry are for losing and making mistakes, again not able to fulfill high expectations, to cover up for guilt, low self-worth, and other inner conflicts, due to external distractions, due to perfectionism, not able to attain a certain standard, then the attitude towards the system and the past experiences with the world around you, lack of acceptance of what happens in your life and the results, and the frustration and the irritations. Then anger can also happen due to disappointment of not having it your way. This happens with people with the egocentric way of thinking. Going by the behavior he exhibits, people suspect Nick may be having personality disorder. A personality disorder is a type of disorder in which you have rigid and unhealthy pattern of thinking, functioning, and behaving. It is a deviational behavior much different from the expected ways of behavior. Nikrios also shows signs of insecurity. He is seen rebelling against the system. He has been fined, banned, and reprimanded so many times, but that's how he reacts each time without fearing the consequences. We don't know what happened in his life and why he is up against the authorities so much. He portrays the world is against me, they're out there to get at me kind of feeling. Maybe his innate nature and the experiences he had in his earlier years have given him this attitude, which many presume as weak. I remember this quote from Albert Einstein. I quote, "Weakness of attitude becomes weakness of character," unquote. The best suggestion anybody could give him is, you need to see a therapist or a psychologist. There are times he has rejected this idea. The 25-year-old Australian began seeing a psychologist in 2018 to get on top of his mental health. Mental toughness and mental strength is inadequate when you are emotionally weak and vulnerable. Former players say the emotional growth of Nick Kyrgios has only come in bits and pieces. Developing emotional intelligence is the only way forward for him. Nick Kyrgios is going through social and interpersonal issues as well. Recently, a court in Canberra has summoned him for assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Nick's behavior is a cry for help, as already told you. He needs professional help and all the love and support he can get. Though he has been criticized by his fans and tennis lovers from all over the world, they all want him to do well and do justice to his immense potential. As they say, nothing lasts forever. There is good news. Times are changing for Nick Kyrgios. After winning his match against Brandon Nakashima in the ongoing All England Wimbledon Championships, Nick said, "Semi-final is not my goal. I was telling people back home that I wanted to go in for the title this year round. Now, I'm not thinking about making the semi-finals or lifting the trophy. I'm just thinking about my habits every day, just trying to put in a good performance on the court. I want to try play positive. I'm not thinking ahead. I'm really trying to stay at the moment. I sit here in the quarterfinals of the Wimbledon feeling good, feeling composed, feeling mature. I'm comfortable in my own skin." Nice things to hear about Nick Kyrgios. What do you say? As I'm recording this audio episode, as the current status stands, Nick Kyrgios has entered the finals of the Wimbledon 2022 Championships, and this is for the first time he's entered a Grand Slam final. The finals is slated to be held on Sunday, the 10th July 2022. Nick Kyrgios was supposed to play Rafa Nadal in the semi-final. Now he gets a walkover to the finals of the tournament. A player who is known to throw away his matches now says, "Having come this far is a special accomplishment." Looking back, Nick says, "There was a point where I was almost done with this sport. I posted on social media this year about the mental state I was in during 2019 when I was at the Australian Open, with thoughts of self-harm and suicide. I am sitting here after the match to be a semi-finalist at Wimbledon. It's a special accomplishment for everyone, especially me, I think. If you asked anyone whether I would do this a couple of years ago, they would probably have said, no, he doesn't have the mental capacity. He doesn't have the fitness. He doesn't have the discipline." I don't want to stop here either. Oh, what a statement to make. Are we not seeing a new Nick Kyrgios out there? Someone who now believes in himself, someone who is hungry for more, someone who is hungry for success, someone who is more mature and composed. These are some of the qualities that define a champion player. Who knows, he may even win this year's Wimbledon. And that may well be the twist and the turning point everyone is looking for. Who knows? He is just 27 with a good 7-8 years of tennis left in him. He may well write his name in tennis history and enter the Hall of Fame. This is Vishwanath signing off for Winning at Stocks podcast.